Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a truly bizarre, yet honestly groundbreaking true story. We're going to see exactly how a single, everyday household pet managed to do what an entire police force initially couldn't. It's just a brilliant example of how science and sheer determination can come together in the absolute most unexpected ways. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive in. The year is 1994. The stage is set with a completely terrifying crime, and the perpetrator, a guy named Douglas Beamish, genuinely thought he had committed the perfect murder. He believed he had covered his tracks completely. No witnesses, no obvious smoking gun tying him to the horrific act. He thought he was entirely in the clear, totally off the hook. But he made one tiny, literally microscopic miscalculation that would ultimately be his absolute undoing. Which brings us to a rather strange question. Can a cat catch a killer? I know, it sounds exactly like the tagline for some cheesy daytime TV movie, right? But I'm asking you this because the answer is going to take us on a wild ride from a massive, frustrating police roadblock straight into a huge scientific milestone. So keep this question in the back of your mind as we walk through the evidence, because a feline informant is about to blow this whole case wide open.
All right, part one, a shallow grave. The 1994 investigation.
To really understand the science here, we first have to understand the crime. The somber reality of this case begins in 1994, on Prince Edward Island in Canada. Authorities make a really grim discovery. A woman named Shirley Dubois is found buried in a shallow grave. Now, just hours later, investigators unearth a crucial piece of evidence buried right there with the body. It's a blood-soaked leather jacket stuffed inside a plastic bag. The investigation is moving incredibly fast at this point, and within days, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Mounties, they identify their prime suspect. It's Dubois' estranged common-law husband, Douglas Beamish. But look, having a suspect and actually proving a suspect's guilt, those are two completely different things. The Mounties urgently needed physical evidence to definitively tie him to that grave.
Now, investigators originally hoped the blood on that leather jacket would be their golden ticket, but the lab results? Total roadblock. Actually, scratch that, it was worse than a roadblock. The blood belonged entirely to the victim, Shirley Dubois. It offered absolutely zero DNA for a suspect match. It was practically useless for placing the killer at the scene. But while meticulously examining that very same jacket, forensics experts discovered something completely unexpected. Right there, amidst the blood, they found strands of white animal hair. Cat hairs, to be exact.
Which leads us to part two, 27 white hairs, the unlikely clue.
Suddenly, the Mounties realized the killer might have left a very different kind of calling card. It wasn't his own DNA. It was the DNA of his environment. 27. That is the exact number of white hair strands found on that leather jacket. Just 27 tiny, seemingly insignificant hairs. It's honestly fascinating how highly specific, microscopic details like this are so often the very things that crack the hardest cases. Because those 27 hairs, they were about to become arguably the most important pieces of evidence in Canadian legal history.
Let's connect the dots here, exactly like the investigators did back in '94. The Mounties knew their prime suspect, Douglas Beamish, lived not too far from the gravesite with his parents. And crucially, they recalled that the Beamish family owned a pet, specifically a white feline. And that cat's name? Snowball. All of a sudden, those 27 white hairs found on the buried jacket perfectly aligned with Beamish's living situation.
So the Mounties have this brilliant investigative leap. Their idea is beautifully simple in theory. Let's obtain a blood sample from Snowball the cat and compare its DNA directly to the DNA found inside the roots of those 27 hairs from the jacket. If they match, well, they can definitively link Beamish's jacket, and by extension, Beamish himself, to the crime scene.
But there was a massive, glaring problem staring them right in the face. No one on the planet had ever successfully done a criminal DNA match on a cat before. Literally no one. While the police had this absolute light bulb moment of a theoretical idea, the forensic science to actually pull it off, it simply didn't exist yet. There was no protocol to follow. There was no database to check. They were in completely uncharted territory.
Bringing us to part three, a scientific first, the forensic Hail Mary.
This case forced two completely unlikely partners together into this high-stakes academic race against time. The Mounties needed to pull off a forensic Hail Mary, and they needed to find scientists brave enough to attempt a scientific first. So, on one side, you've got the investigators, the Mounties, in Prince Edward Island, Canada. They are desperately trying to solve a local murder and desperately need a DNA match to put away a killer.
On the other side, the academics, a team of researchers at the National Cancer Institute's Laboratory of Genomic Diversity located all the way down in Frederick, Maryland. The Maryland team was busy doing pure science, mapping the global feline genome. They had never, ever participated in a CSI-style criminal investigation in their lives. After a series of frantic calls, the Mounties finally found them. But as you might imagine, it took some serious convincing to get a group of cancer researchers to halt their academic work and sign on to help solve a homicide.
But incredibly, sign on they did, and they developed a brand new methodology on the fly. Let's break it down. Step 1. The Mounties legally obtain a blood sample from Snowball. Step 2. The academics in Maryland take those 27 hairs and quickly isolate the genetic code hidden inside them. And Step 3. They compare the two. They are looking to see if the genetic markers match up perfectly enough to actually stand up in a court of law.
And the result of that completely groundbreaking academic process? It was an exact match. The Maryland scientists didn't just match the DNA. They actually provided expert testimony in court, explaining this brand new technology to the jury. And because of this unprecedented collaboration between rural Canadian police and Maryland genomic researchers, Douglas Beamish was definitively tied to that jacket. He was convicted of the murder of Shirley Duguay and sent to prison. Justice was finally served, and it was all thanks to Snowball.
And that brings us to part 4, the feline forensic legacy, a permanent change to the justice system.
Now, if the story just ended right there, it would be fascinating enough, right? But let's zoom out from the micro details of 1994 and look at the macro impact. This single case fundamentally and permanently changed global forensics. Following the huge success of the Beamish trial, the United States Department of Justice saw the immense value of what had just been achieved. So much so that they awarded a massive grant of $265,000 as a direct result of this case. That money wasn't just some pat on the back. It was literal seed funding for the future of crime solving.
And that money achieved a massive, lasting legacy. First off, the Beamish case set a rock-solid legal precedent for using cat DNA in court. No one could ever say it was untested again. Second, that grant money funded the creation of the National Feline Genetic Database. Third, it allowed for the development of standardized technology that could be rolled out to forensics labs all around the world. So today, global authorities actually have the power to trace cat hairs found at practically any crime scene back to specific household pets. Snowball didn't just catch one killer, he literally upgraded the worldwide forensic toolkit.
To bring this explainer right into the modern day, consider this wild stat. It's estimated that about a third, 33% of criminals own felines. Think about the wry irony of that for just a second. 1 out of every 3 criminals out there goes home to a furry forensic informant, an informant who is constantly shedding microscopic tracking devices all over their clothes. Those innocent little pets are walking, purring DNA databases, just waiting to place their owners right at the scene of the crime. It really makes you look at your own living room a little differently, doesn't it? Which brings us to our final thought. As technology continues to rapidly evolve, leaping from human genomes to feline genomes and beyond, what other forensic secrets are the pets in your home keeping right now? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and hey, maybe give your cat an extra treat today.